Good morning and welcome to the study of Solomon. We are going to bring you up to date in the Old Testament with the quickest summary of the Old Testament up to Solomon's birth known to mankind. Probably not, but I'm going to say it is anyway. So in the beginning was creation, Adam and Eve, the flood, Noah. Then Abraham is called. Abraham has a son named Isaac. Isaac has a son named Jacob. Jacob's name is changed to Israel. He has 12 sons. One of those is Joseph. Joseph goes to Egypt. That's a great story. If you haven't read it, they made a musical out of it, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. It's a great story. So Joseph's in Egypt. There's a famine. Joseph brings his family. That's Jacob / Israel and all the brothers down to Egypt. They live there, escaping the famine, and they live there for 300 years, not them, but their families, and they grow to be a big sub-nation of Egypt. And then a new Pharaoh comes in and he oppresses them, and they cry out to God, and so God sends Moses, and there's the whole plague thing and the Passover. And so Pharaoh says, yes, you can take your people. So Moses takes the people. God parts the Red Sea. They go through. The Pharaoh changes his mind. They go through. God says, not so much. The Red Sea collapses on the Pharaoh's people, and the good guys, Moses, they get away. They're in the desert. Moses sends the spies to the promised land and says, go, scout it out. And the guys come back, and 10 of them say, oh, we're scared, we can't do it. So God says, because of your unwillingness to take this land with my protection and your lack of faith in me, you're going to wander this desert for 40 years. So they did. And then Joshua finally takes them into the promised land. And they claim most of the promised land, but not all of the promised land. And then they enter this cycle of rebellion. So they have God's blessing, and then they become spiritually complacent. Oh, life is so good, we don't have to do anything. And then they slowly slide into sin and idolatry, and then they start suffering at the hands of their enemies, and the enemies oppress them, and then they cry out to God for help, and God delivers them through Judges. That's a whole book on that. And then the cycle starts all over again. So the people start crying out saying, we need a king, and God's like rolling his eyes going, okay, whatever. And so he gives them Saul, who turns out to be crazy, and then David becomes king. Whole great story, great drama there. And Goliath, all those stories. And David has a son named Solomon, and that's where we pick up in our study. So you kind of know where the Jews are. You kind of know Solomon's from David. And our reading today is 1 Chronicles 3, 1 through 9. So please pause me and read 1 Chronicles 3, 1 through 9. I'll be right here. Unpause me when you're through. So you read about all these kids that David has, and I mean, Solomon's just a name among them. If you know anything about David, you probably know Bathsheba, the story of Bathsheba, and Bathsheba is Solomon's mom, and she had 4 other sons. We don't know how many daughters, if any, she had. And we're presuming, we know the first one died, and we're presuming that the others have died for some reason. But he is not David's firstborn even then. There's still the kids born in Hebron to other mothers. But God and David and Bathsheba all want Solomon to be king. So also in this passage, it mentions these concubines. And just as a note, it has been said that maybe David inherited these concubines from Saul. There's no mention of Saul and concubines, but generally when one king takes over from another, they get the concubines, just like they get the cows, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, so there's a whole story that's going to develop as a result of choosing Solomon over all of these other kids. And we'll start with that tomorrow.